The flickering lights of the Dromda trade station pulsed rhythmically against the backdrop of the vast cosmos. I leaned against the cold steel railing, gazing out at the bustling dock. Ships of all shapes and sizes hovered in the void, their hulls glinting in the starlight. Trade was the lifeblood of the galaxy, a pulsating vein that connected worlds. But today, that vein was slowly choking. "Captain Hale!" A voice snapped me out of my reverie. It was Rail, my first mate, a wiry figure with sharp features that betrayed a history of hardships. His brow was furrowed with concern, eyes darting between the docked vessels and the comms panel. "What's got you all riled up?" I asked, turning to face him. Rail had a knack for sensing trouble before it even arrived. "The Earth route," he said, his voice dropping to a whisper. "Traders are refusing to take it. They're calling Earth, well, you know." "Too scary?" I finished, rolling my eyes. The whispers had turned into a full-blown panic among the traders, but I couldn't believe it. "Yeah, it's gone beyond a joke, Marcus. We're losing clients left and right. The Zypherians just canceled their next shipment, and the Tarnics are pulling out of the negotiations." I sighed, rubbing the back of my neck. Earth had always been a source of unease for some. The conflicts, the media portrayals, the legends, there was plenty to stoke the fire of fear. But a trade halt? This was serious. "I'll see what I can do." I pushed off the railing and headed toward the comms center. As I entered, the cacophony of voices filled the room. Traders, merchants, and even a few diplomats were gathered, all furiously discussing the crisis. "Captain Hale!" shouted a voice from the crowd, a burly Vorlon trader named Terk. "You need to talk to your people. They're making us look like fools." "My people?" I shot back. "We're not the ones running scared. You've all traded with Earth before. What's changed?" Another trader chimed in, a Zypherian with an air of calm amidst the chaos. "It's not just the rumors anymore, Marcus. It's the energy. Earth feels different, darker." The word darker sent a chill down my spine. It hinted at a deeper fear, one that no amount of negotiation could dispel. I leaned closer to the comms panel, trying to get a grasp on the situation. "If we don't take action, we'll all be out of business. We need to restore the route, and fast. I'm willing to go myself. I'll make the run to Earth and find out what's really going on." The room fell silent. The traders exchanged wary glances, and I could see the doubt creeping in. "You really think you can handle it?" Rail asked, concern etched in his voice. "What if they're right?" I straightened, meeting Rail's gaze. "I've got to know. If Earth is as scary as they say, then we'll need to figure out how to deal with it. If it's just a misunderstanding, I'll bring that back. Either way, it's a risk we have to take." With a few murmurs of agreement and the nodding of heads, I solidified my plan. I was determined to confront this fear head-on. But deep down, a small voice whispered doubts, a worry I couldn't shake. The next morning, I stood on the bridge of my ship, the Starfire, feeling the weight of uncertainty pressing down on me. Rail was at the helm, adjusting the coordinates for the Earth jump point. "You ready for this?" he asked, glancing at me sideways. "Ready as I'll ever be," I replied, trying to sound confident. The ship hummed beneath my feet, the familiar vibrations both comforting and unnerving. As we entered hyperspace, the vast emptiness of the cosmos enveloped us. I watched the swirling colors of the tunnel, my mind racing. What awaited us on Earth? The mere thought sent a shiver down my spine. I had my reasons to fear the planet, but I couldn't let that cloud my judgment. Earth had once been my home, a chaotic blend of beauty and danger. Memories flooded my mind, sunlit parks, crowded streets, and the sound of laughter. But there were shadows, too. The night my family vanished in the chaos of a protest still haunted me. I'd lost everything, but I had always believed there was more to the story. The ship's sensors beeped, pulling me from my thoughts. "We're approaching Earth," Rail announced, his voice steady. "Jumping to real space in 3, 2, 1. The fabric of reality snapped back, and we emerged in orbit around Earth. My breath caught in my throat. Below us, the planet spun a beautiful blue marble against the blackness of space. But it felt different this time. Strange energy readings coming from the surface, Rail said, his eyes glued to the screen. It's fluctuating wildly. Fluctuating how? I asked, tension coiling in my gut. Hard to say, but it's almost as if, he paused, scanning the data. Something is amplifying down there. Let's take a closer look. I gripped the armrest of my chair, forcing myself to focus. As we descended through the atmosphere, the sights became more familiar yet foreign. The cities sprawled beneath us, smog hanging low like a blanket over a restless child. I felt a surge of nostalgia, but the fear the traders spoke of clung to the air. Dropping to low orbit, Rail announced, his fingers dancing over the controls. A sudden jolt rocked the ship. Alarms blared, and the lights flickered ominously. What the hell was that? I shouted, adrenaline pumping through me. I don't know. We've lost stabilization. Rail struggled with the controls, his knuckles turning white. Brace for impact. The ship lurched violently, spinning as we entered a chaotic atmosphere. I grasped the console, trying to steady myself. I could feel the weight of gravity pulling us down, a powerful force determined to bring us crashing to the ground. The screen flashed with warnings, red lights flashing like a heartbeat. Hold on, Rail, I shouted, wrestling with the controls. The ship screamed as we plunged lower, cutting through the thick haze of clouds. Impact imminent, Rail shouted, panic lacing his voice. As the ground rushed up to meet us, I closed my eyes, focusing on my breathing. I couldn't let fear take control, not now. With a final, desperate maneuver, I pulled the ship up, but it wasn't enough. We slammed into the earth, the impact jarring my bones and the hull of the Starfire. The ship skidded, sending plumes of dirt and debris flying, before finally coming to a halt. I opened my eyes, disoriented. The alarms continued to blare around us. You okay? I asked Rail, who was trying to shake off the shock. Yeah, I think so, he replied, his voice shaky. Let's check the damage. I unclipped my harness and pushed the door open, the hiss of escaping air punctuating the tense silence. The outside world greeted us with an eerie stillness, the remnants of our crash scattered around us like the aftermath of a storm. The landscape was not what I expected. Once vibrant cities lay in ruins, overgrown with nature's relentless grip. But beneath that beauty was a sense of decay, as if the planet itself mourned the loss of its inhabitants. This is not what I imagined, Rail murmured, stepping cautiously beside me. We need to find out what happened, I said, the determination rising within me. If we're going to restore trade, we need answers. As we ventured out, a chill ran down my spine. The stories were true. There was something unsettling in the air. I had to confront the past, face the demons lurking in the shadows of Earth. The first steps onto the soil of my home planet felt surreal. The air was thick with tension, and every crackling leaf and distant sound felt amplified. I turned to Rail, whose gaze was fixed ahead, scanning for signs of life. Do you think anyone's still here? He asked, a hint of hope in his voice. We won't know until we look, I replied, steeling my resolve. The mystery of Earth awaited, and I was determined to uncover the truth. We moved through the ruins, navigating the remnants of a once thriving civilization. Shadows flickered at the edge of our vision, and each rustle of leaves sent our hearts racing. What if they're different now? Rail suggested, his voice barely above a whisper. I nodded. Fear had transformed this place, twisting it into something unknown. But if we were to restore the trade route, we had to confront whatever awaited us in the heart of this mystery. Just then, a sound echoed through the trees, a low, mournful howl. We froze, exchanging glances. What was that? Rail asked, his eyes wide. I don't know, but we need to keep moving, I urged, forcing myself to take a step forward. The feeling of being watched prickled at the back of my neck, but I pressed on, determined to uncover the truth behind the fear that had gripped the galaxy. As we ventured deeper into the heart of Earth, I couldn't shake the feeling that we were not alone. The sun dipped below the horizon, casting an eerie glow over the desolation. We had followed the sound of the howl, leading us to an old encampment makeshift structures scattered among the trees. As we stepped closer, the hairs on my arms stood on end. "Looks like we found someone," Rail whispered, peering into one of the dilapidated tents. "Let's be careful," I warned, my instincts screaming at me. We moved cautiously, scanning the area, but as we entered the camp, it became clear that it had been abandoned in a hurry. The remnants of old food rations lay strewn about, and the air was thick with a sense of despair. "What happened here?" Rail asked, his voice low. I shrugged, feeling an uneasy tension knotting in my stomach. "I wish I knew." Suddenly, a shadow moved at the edge of our vision. We spun around, hearts racing. A figure emerged from the darkness, cloaked and hooded, their face obscured. "Who's there?" I demanded, stepping forward. "We're not here to cause trouble." The figure paused, tilting their head. "You shouldn't have come here," they said, their voice low and haunting. "What do you mean?" Rail interjected, taking a step closer. "We're just trying to understand what happened." "They're not what they seem," the figure warned, a tremor of fear threading through their words. "You'll only bring more danger if you linger." "Who's not what they seem?" I pressed, frustration bubbling beneath the surface. "We need answers." The figure stepped closer, revealing their face a young man with striking blue eyes, the haunted look of someone who had seen too much. "The people of Earth, they've changed. The fear has turned them into something else. You can't trust them." "Changed how?" I asked, my heart pounding. He hesitated, glancing around as if expecting someone to jump out of the shadows. "It's not just about the fear. There's something ancient awakening beneath the surface, something tied to Earth's past. It calls to those who can hear it." The weight of his words settled heavily between us. I could feel my pulse quicken, a knot of dread forming in my stomach. "We need to stop whatever is happening," I declared, determination replacing my earlier hesitation. "If we don't, there won't be an Earth to trade with." The young man studied me for a moment, as if weighing my resolve. "If you're serious, then you need to come with me. There's a group of resistance. They're trying to fight against what's emerging." "Lead the way," I said without hesitation. I glanced at Rail, who nodded, his expression mirroring my own. As we followed the young man deeper into the woods, I couldn't shake the feeling that we were heading straight into a storm. The answers we sought lay ahead, but so did the terrifying unknown. The path grew darker as we moved deeper into the forest. The oppressive weight of the air pressed against us, a reminder of the fear that gripped Earth. My heart raced with uncertainty. Would we find the answers we sought, or would we become part of the legends that haunted the traders? "What's your name?" I asked the young man as we walked, trying to break the silence that had settled between us. "Ethan," he replied, glancing over his shoulder. "And you're the captain." "Marcus Hale," I said. "I'm here to figure out what's going on. Why are the traders scared?" Ethan's expression darkened. "Because they don't understand. They think the fears are irrational, but they don't realize the power that's been unleashed. It calls to those who can listen." "What do you mean by calls?" Rail chimed in, clearly intrigued. "It's hard to explain. There are forces at play, ancient ones tied to Earth's history. It's as if the planet itself is awakening, and those who dwell here are becoming conduits for that energy." The thought sent a shiver down my spine. What kind of forces? Those that were sealed away, forgotten by time. They're waking up, and the people those still left are being drawn to it. The fear is only the beginning. If we don't stop this, it could spread beyond Earth. The gravity of his words weighed heavily on my chest. I felt a flicker of urgency, a need to act before it was too late. "Where's this resistance?" I asked, urgency sharpening my voice. "They're hiding in the old subway tunnels. They believe that if they can tap into the energy without being consumed by it, they can fight back." Ethan led us through the thick underbrush, the trees looming overhead like silent sentinels. "What's your plan?" I asked, my mind racing with possibilities. "We need to reach them, gather as many people as we can. If we can unite against the forces awakening, we might stand a chance." As we reached a clearing, I could see the entrance to the subway tunnels ahead, a gaping maw in the earth, surrounded by twisted metal and vines. I felt a wave of apprehension wash over me. "This feels like the heart of darkness," I said, glancing at Rail. "More like the heart of humanity's past," he replied, his tone serious. Ethan stepped forward, gesturing for us to follow. "This is where it all began. The secrets of Earth lie beneath." Together, we descended into the depths of the earth, the shadows swallowing us whole. The air grew colder, and the remnants of a forgotten world enveloped us. As we stepped into the tunnel, the flickering lights overhead cast eerie shadows along the damp walls. The smell of mildew and decay filled the air, but beneath it all, I sensed something else, a faint pulse, almost rhythmic, resonating through the stone. "What's that?" Rail whispered, his voice barely above a breath. "It's the energy," Ethan replied, his expression grave. "It's stronger down here." I pressed my hand against the wall, feeling the vibrations echo through my bones. "Can you hear it?" I asked, an involuntary shiver racing down my spine. "Yes," Ethan said, his eyes narrowing. "It's calling to us." "Should we really be following it?" Rail questioned, a note of concern creeping into his voice. "We need to understand what's happening." "This is part of the truth," I said firmly, determined to face whatever lay ahead. The tunnel twisted and turned, revealing remnants of a bygone era. Crumbling posters and faded graffiti told stories of struggles long forgotten. As we moved deeper, the air thickened with an unsettling energy, a force that pulsed like a heartbeat. Suddenly, a sound echoed down the corridor, a guttural growl that resonated through the darkness. I froze, my heart racing. "What was that?" I hissed. Ethan's expression shifted to one of dread. "We need to move now." We sprinted through the tunnel, the sound growing louder behind us. The darkness swallowed us, the lights flickering erratically as we raced deeper into the labyrinth. I could feel the energy thrumming beneath our feet, a siren song urging us onward. "There," Ethan shouted, pointing to a dim light ahead. "That's where the resistance is." We rounded a corner, and the tunnel opened into a vast chamber. It was filled with makeshift tents and flickering fires, a gathering of weary souls who looked up in surprise at our arrival. "Who are you?" A burly figure stepped forward, his brow furrowed in suspicion. "Marcus Hale, here to help," I replied, my voice steady despite the chaos swirling around us. "We need to unite against whatever is awakening on Earth." The man's eyes narrowed, studying me. "You think you can help? The fear is already spreading. What do you know about it?" I took a deep breath, feeling the weight of their gazes on me. "I know we need to face it together. We can't let this darkness consume us." The man regarded me for a moment before nodding. "I'm Captain Arlen. We're the last of those who remember what Earth once was. If you're serious about helping, then we need a plan." Ethan stepped forward. "We need to harness the energy and push back against whatever is rising. If we can focus our will, we might stand a chance." Arlen considered this, his expression softening. "We've been trying to figure out how to tap into it without being consumed. We need your help to understand its nature." I nodded, feeling a surge of determination. "Then let's get to work. If we can confront the truth of Earth's past, we can break the cycle of fear." As we gathered the remnants of the resistance, I felt a flicker of hope. This was the first step toward restoring the Earth route and reclaiming our place in the galaxy. The chamber buzzed with energy as we gathered our thoughts, pooling our knowledge. The flickering fires light weary faces, each lined with the burdens of the past. I stood at the center, addressing the crowd with determination. "Listen up," I called, my voice carrying through the chamber. "We're on the brink of something monumental. The fear that's gripping the traitors and the galaxy comes from a misunderstanding of what's awakening here. We need to confront it head-on." A murmur of agreement rippled through the crowd, and I could see the flicker of hope igniting in their eyes. If we harness the energy and face whatever is lurking beneath, we can push back against the darkness. We can reclaim Earth. "Easy to say, harder to do," Arlen interjected, his brow furrowed. The energy is unpredictable. It could consume us. I understand the risks, I replied, meeting his gaze. But we have to try. We need to unite our strength and confront this force together. If we're going to restore trade and peace, we need to show the galaxy that we're not afraid. The energy in the room shifted, the tension transforming into resolve. We need to gather what we can from this chamber. Use the remnants of old tech, any crystals or relics we can find. If we can channel the energy, we may have a chance, Ethan suggested. Let's get to work, I commanded, feeling the adrenaline surge through me. The hours stretched on as we worked tirelessly, piecing together whatever remnants we could find. Crystals glinted in the firelight, their energy vibrating beneath our fingertips. We collaborated, pooling our knowledge and skills, creating makeshift devices that would help us channel the energy. As the last flickers of daylight faded above, the atmosphere in the chamber shifted. A sense of anticipation settled over us, the pulse of the earth resonating beneath our feet. "Is everyone ready?" I called, looking around at the gathered faces. They nodded, determination etched in their expressions. "Let's do this," Arlen shouted, rallying the crowd. We formed a circle, hands linked together as we stood in the center of the chamber. The crystals were arranged before us, their energy radiating outward. I could feel the connection building, a warm hum vibrating through our bodies. "Focus your thoughts on the energy," I instructed. "Feel it connect with your essence. We're stronger together." As we concentrated, the crystals began to glow brighter, a swirling vortex of light and energy erupting around us. The pulse of the earth quickened, merging with our own. I felt the power surging, a tidal wave of energy that threatened to overwhelm us. "Stay together," I urged, pushing back against the rising tide. The energy crackled around us, weaving through our thoughts, merging with our fears and hopes. The shadows in the chamber flickered, momentarily revealing glimpses of the past echoes of lives lived, battles fought, and sacrifices made. The energy coalesced, forming a barrier of light that expanded outward. The weight of the darkness pressed against us, but we held our ground, fighting back against the fear that sought to consume us. In that moment, I could feel the truth of Earth awakening, the beauty and chaos intertwined, the darkness and light forever at odds. I had to believe we could restore balance. The energy surged and pulsed, enveloping us in a cocoon of light. I felt the weight of the past lift, a momentary clarity washing over me. Visions of Earth's history flooded my mind, stories of resilience and hope battling against despair. "Keep pushing," Ethan shouted, his voice cutting through the tumult. I focused on the energy, willing it to strengthen. "We're not afraid," I proclaimed, my voice rising above the chaos. "We are the guardians of Earth." As the energy intensified, I felt the connection deepening, binding us together as one. The barrier expanded, pushing back against the encroaching shadows that threatened to engulf us. The darkness writhed, responding to our defiance. I could see shapes emerging, figures twisted by fear, their faces etched with pain. But we stood firm, channeling our collective strength into the light. "Together, we can break the cycle," I shouted, my heart racing with the conviction of our unity. The energy erupted, a blinding flash that lit the chamber, banishing the shadows. The figures dissolved into wisps of smoke, their anguished cries fading into silence. The power surged, enveloping us in its warmth. We had confronted the fear and emerged stronger. As the light receded, I blinked against the brightness. The chamber was transformed, filled with a soft glow that radiated from the crystals. The air felt lighter, as if the weight of Earth's past had lifted. "We did it," Rael exclaimed, his face alight with joy. Ethan stepped forward, awe in his eyes. This is incredible. We've harnessed the energy." "Now we can send a message," I declared, turning to Arlen. "We need to let the galaxy know that Earth is not to be feared. We're still here, and we're ready to trade." Arlen nodded, a smile breaking through his serious demeanor. "With this energy, we can create a beacon. Show the galaxy that Earth has changed, that we're ready to stand united." Together, we gathered our resources, fashioning a device that would amplify the energy and transmit our message across the stars. The air buzzed with anticipation as we worked, our determination propelling us forward. Finally, as the device hummed to life, I felt a surge of hope. We were reclaiming Earth's place in the cosmos. With a deep breath, I activated the device. The energy swirled around us, coalescing into a radiant beam that shot up into the atmosphere. "Let's hope this works," I said, glancing at Rail. The beam pulsed, light the sky with a brilliant light. It echoed through the vastness of space, a beacon of hope reaching out to the traders and merchants who had once turned away in fear. As the light flickered across the stars, I could feel the power of our unity resonating through the cosmos. We were not alone. The galaxy would hear our call. Hours later, we stood together in the chamber, the weight of uncertainty still lingering. But hope flickered in our hearts as we awaited a response. "Do you think they'll come?" Rail asked, his voice barely above a whisper. "They will," I replied firmly. "We've shown them that we're ready to face whatever lies ahead. We're stronger together." And as the minutes turned into hours, a faint signal pulsed through the air, a message from the traders who had once feared Earth. "Captain Hale, we're receiving communications," Ethan shouted, his eyes wide with excitement. "Put it through," I ordered, heart racing. The screen flickered to life, revealing a familiar face, Terk, the Vorlon trader who had once berated us for our attempts to confront the fear. "Marcus," he exclaimed, a mixture of relief and disbelief on his face. "You actually did it." "We did," I replied, a surge of pride swelling within me. "We've faced the darkness and come out stronger. Earth is ready to trade again." Terk glanced around, a sense of awe in his eyes. "We've been watching. The energy, it's incredible. There's a shift happening. We want to be part of it." My heart soared. "Then let's work together. Earth has much to offer, and we're ready to open the trade routes once more." Terk nodded, a smile spreading across his face. "We'll spread the word. This is the beginning of a new era." As the communication ended, I felt a wave of exhilaration wash over me. We had done the impossible. Earth was no longer feared. It was embraced, ready to reclaim its place in the galaxy. In the following weeks, the trade routes reopened, and the galaxy responded with renewed interest. Ships arrived from every corner of the cosmos, eager to forge new alliances with Earth. The fear that had once gripped the traders faded into memory, replaced by hope and possibility. As I stood on the bridge of the Starfire, gazing out at the bustling trade station, I felt a sense of fulfillment wash over me. We had faced the darkness together, and now we were stronger for it. "Ready for the next run?" Rail asked, a glint of excitement in his eyes. I nodded, my heart racing with anticipation. Let's show the galaxy what Earth is capable of. As the Starfire prepared for launch, I couldn't help but feel that this was just the beginning. Together, we had faced the fears of the past and emerged victorious, ready to explore the infinite possibilities of the stars. In the weeks following the successful reopening of trade routes, Earth transformed from a planet cloaked in fear to a beacon of hope and opportunity in the galaxy. The bustling trade station, once a desolate ghost of its former self, now thrummed with activity as ships from various systems docked to exchange goods and stories. I stood on the bridge of the Starfire, marveling at the vibrant display of interstellar commerce. "Look at them all," Rail said, leaning against the console, a grin stretching across his face. "Who would have thought Earth would become a hub for traders again?" I chuckled, a sense of pride swelling in my chest. "It's incredible. We've managed to show them that we're not just a myth or a ghost story. We're here, and we're ready to trade." The comm system buzzed to life, and Terk's voice crackled through the speakers. "Captain Hale, we've got a shipment coming in from the Zithra Collective. They're excited about the new trade agreements." "Good news," I replied, feeling a surge of optimism. "Let's ensure the docking bay is ready. We want to make a good impression." "On it," Rail said, already tapping commands into the console. As we prepared for the arrival of the Zithrans, I couldn't shake the feeling that we were riding a wave of momentum. The fear that had once gripped the galaxy had been replaced by curiosity and eagerness to engage with Earth once again. The old stories of terrifying encounters with the planet had faded, replaced by tales of our resilience and the strength of our newfound unity. When the Zithran ship finally arrived, I was ready to greet them. The docking bay doors opened, revealing a sleek vessel adorned with shimmering patterns that seemed to pulse with energy. As the hatch opened, a delegation of Zithrans stepped out, their tall, elegant forms gliding forward. They had iridescent skin that shifted in color as they moved, and their eyes sparkled with an otherworldly brilliance. "Welcome to Earth," I called, stepping forward with a smile. "I'm Captain Marcus Hale. We're excited to start this new partnership." The tallest of the Zithrans stepped forward, his voice melodic and smooth. "I am Valthar, ambassador of the Zithra Collective. We have heard much about your planet and the courage you have shown in overcoming the shadows of your past. It hasn't been easy," I admitted, "but we're ready to embrace the future." Valthar nodded, his gaze sweeping over the bustling docking bay. "We come with gifts, knowledge, technology, and trade goods that will benefit both our worlds." Rael stepped up beside me, his eyes wide with excitement. "What kind of technology are we talking about?" "Advanced agricultural methods and energy systems," Valthar replied, gesturing to the cargo. "We have found ways to harness energy more efficiently, something that could help Earth thrive again." "Impressive," I said, feeling the excitement in the air. "We have resources to share as well, rare minerals, organic materials, and the unique products of our planet." As we discussed the details of our trade agreement, I felt a sense of purpose settling over me. We were not just restoring trade, we were rebuilding relationships, forging alliances that would strengthen Earth's position in the galaxy. Days turned into weeks, and the trade agreements flourished. I spent countless hours in the docking bays, meeting representatives from various systems, each eager to establish connections with Earth. The bustling activity revitalized the once quiet planet, breathing life into the old structures and bringing hope back to the populace. However, amidst the celebrations and newfound prosperity, I couldn't shake the lingering sense of unease. I often found myself thinking about Ethan's warnings, the forces that were awakening beneath the surface of Earth. While we had faced down the immediate threats, I wondered if the true challenges lay ahead. One evening, after a long day of meetings, I stood on the observation deck of the Starfire, gazing out at the stars. The vastness of space always captivated me, but tonight I felt a chill run down my spine. The darkness was still out there, and though we had pushed back the immediate fears, the ancient forces tied to Earth's history still lingered beneath the surface. Lost in thought, Rael's voice pulled me from my reverie, and I turned to see him approaching. "I can't help but wonder if we've really defeated the darkness," I confessed, crossing my arms. "What if it's still there, waiting for us to let our guard down?" Rael nodded, his expression serious. "Ethan said the awakening was only the beginning. We need to stay vigilant." As we talked, a beep from the console interrupted us. The screen flickered to life, displaying a communication from Arlen and the Resistance Group. "Captain Hale," Arlen's voice came through, filled with urgency. "We need to speak with you. There's been an unsettling disturbance in the tunnels. It's as if the energy is shifting, and we're sensing something awakening again." My heart sank. "We'll be there right away." Rael and I rushed to the hangar bay, and I felt a mix of dread and determination wash over me. The past was not yet fully behind us, and if there were forces stirring in the depths of Earth, we had to confront them before they could threaten our hard-won peace. The ride to the Resistance's headquarters was tense, the weight of our mission pressing heavily upon me. I recalled Ethan's warning about the ancient forces and felt a knot of apprehension in my stomach. If something was awakening, we had to be prepared. As we arrived at the subway tunnels, the familiar darkness loomed ahead. The entrance felt ominous, as if it were guarding secrets that were best left undisturbed. The air was thick with tension, and I could sense the unease among the members of the Resistance. Arlen met us at the entrance, his expression grave. We felt the energy shift earlier today. It's stronger than before, but there's a sense of malevolence intertwined with it. What do you mean? I asked, my pulse quickening. There's been a series of strange occurrences. Shadows moving where there shouldn't be, whispers echoing through the tunnels. We believe something has stirred below, a remnant of the past that is not pleased with our presence. Can we confront it? Rael asked, a fierce determination in his eyes. We can try, Arlen replied, but we need to be cautious. If the energy has shifted, it could be unpredictable. I nodded, steeling myself for whatever lay ahead. Let's prepare ourselves. If we're going to face this force, we need to be ready. Together, we gathered a small group of resistance members and equipped ourselves with the devices we had created to channel the energy. As we descended into the tunnels, I felt a growing sense of urgency. The darkness felt alive, swirling around us as if it were aware of our presence. We moved cautiously, the echoes of our footsteps reverberating through the damp corridors. The faint pulse of energy throbbed beneath our feet, and I could feel the tension building as we ventured deeper into the depths of Earth. Stay focused, I instructed, glancing back at the group. We need to remain united. As we approached the chamber where we had previously confronted the darkness, I felt a chill race down my spine. The air was heavy with an unnatural energy, crackling with anticipation. Here we are, Arlen said, his voice low. The chamber was shrouded in darkness, the flickering lights casting eerie shadows along the walls. I could see the crystals we had used to harness the energy, now pulsating erratically as if responding to a disturbance. Something isn't right, Rael murmured, scanning the room. Suddenly, a deep growl reverberated through the chamber, echoing off the walls. The shadows flickered and twisted, taking on forms that seemed to dance in the corners of my vision. Prepare yourselves, I shouted, raising my device, feeling the energy swirling within me. The air crackled with tension as the shadows coalesced, forming figures that emerged from the darkness. Their faces were twisted and contorted, reflecting the fear and anguish of those who had succumbed to despair. We must confront them, Arlen commanded, his voice steady. Channel the energy, I urged, focusing on the crystals. We can push them back. As we concentrated, the crystals began to glow brighter, light the chamber. The figures recoiled, their forms shifting and writhing as the light encroached upon them. We are not afraid, I shouted, my voice rising above the chaos. We stand united against the darkness. The energy surged, and I felt the pulse of the earth beneath me strengthen. We were not alone, we had each other, and together we could confront the fear that sought to consume us. The figures lunged forward, but we held our ground, channeling our collective strength into the light. The chamber erupted with a brilliant glow, pushing back the shadows and forcing the figures to retreat. We can break the cycle, I shouted, feeling the energy surge through me. As the light expanded, the figures began to dissipate, their anguished cries fading into silence. The darkness that had loomed over us receded, revealing the beauty of the crystals that pulsed with life. But as the last remnants of the shadows vanished, I felt a tremor beneath my feet, a deep rumble echoing through the chamber. The energy shifted once more, and I realized we had awakened something deeper. Stay alert, I warned, feeling the ground shake beneath us. We need to brace ourselves. The crystals exploded with light, and the chamber filled with a blinding brilliance that momentarily blinded us. I shielded my eyes, feeling the energy surge around us, a wave of raw power that threatened to consume everything in its path. When the light finally subsided, I opened my eyes to a scene that left me breathless. The chamber had transformed into a kaleidoscope of colors, swirling with vibrant energy that felt alive and chaotic. "Is everyone okay?" I called, looking around at my companions. "We're here," Rael replied, his voice steady despite the uncertainty. I glanced at Arlen, who was scanning the chamber, his expression a mix of awe and fear. "What just happened?" "I believe we've connected with the core of Earth's energy," he said, his voice low. "But it's unstable. We need to regain control." "Let's channel the energy again," I suggested, raising my device. we can harness it and stabilize the core. Together, we formed a circle, linking our hands as we focused on the pulsating energy surrounding us. I could feel the warmth radiating from the crystals, the heartbeat of Earth resonating beneath our feet. Focus on the light, I instructed. We need to unify our thoughts and direct the energy. As we concentrated, the colors around us swirled, merging into a singular force that surged through our bodies. The energy pulsed and throbbed, threatening to overwhelm us, but we held our ground. Together, I urged, pushing back against the chaos. We can do this. With a collective effort, we directed the energy toward the core, channeling our intentions into a steady beam of light. The colors shifted, stabilizing as we formed a bridge between the chaos and the calm. Slowly, the pulsating energy began to settle, the colors harmonizing into a gentle glow that filled the chamber with warmth. The vibrations underfoot steadied, and I felt a wave of relief wash over me. "We've done it," Rael exclaimed, a smile breaking through the tension. But just as we began to celebrate, a low growl echoed through the chamber once more, sending chills down my spine. The energy crackled ominously, and I realized we were not finished yet. "Stay focused," I called, feeling the energy shift again. "We need to remain vigilant." From the depths of the chamber, a figure emerged, a creature formed from shadows and light, its eyes glowing with a malevolent fire. It was larger than the figures we had faced before, its form shifting and twisting as it advanced toward us. "Defend yourselves," Arlen shouted, raising his device. I stepped forward, feeling the energy surge within me. "We've faced the darkness before, and we can do it again." The creature lunged, and we channeled our energy into a concentrated beam, directing it toward the beast. The light met the shadows in a fierce clash, light the chamber with a brilliant display of power. "Push back," I urged, feeling the raw energy pulse through me. "We are stronger together." The creature writhed, its form flickering as we concentrated our efforts. The energy surged, enveloping the beast in a cocoon of light, pushing back against the shadows that sought to consume us. With one final push, we directed the energy into a blinding flash that erupted from our circle, engulfing the creature in radiant light. The shadows twisted and shrieked, and with a final explosion, the darkness dissipated into the air, leaving only the soft glow of the crystals behind. Panting, we stood together, the chamber filled with a serene light. The oppressive atmosphere lifted, replaced by a sense of peace and accomplishment. "Is it over?" Rael asked, scanning the chamber for any remnants of the creature. "I think so," I replied, my heart still racing. "But we need to remain vigilant. There may be more threats lurking beneath the surface." Arlen nodded, his expression serious. "We've faced one darkness, but we must ensure that we are prepared for whatever may come next." As we made our way out of the tunnels, I couldn't shake the feeling that our journey was far from over. We had confronted the shadows and emerged victorious, but the darkness was cunning, and it would not rest easily. Back at the surface, the vibrant energy of the trade station surrounded us, a stark contrast to the depths we had just left. Traders bustled about, laughter and conversation filling the air, but I couldn't help but feel the weight of the shadows still lingering in the corners of my mind. "We need to share what we've learned," I said to Rael and Arlen as we stepped outside. "The galaxy must know that while we are opening our doors, we are also aware of the dangers that still exist." "Agreed," Rael said. "We can't let our guard down." As we gathered the Resistance members, I felt a sense of responsibility settle over me. We had faced the darkness together, but the threat was not fully extinguished. We needed to remain vigilant, not just for ourselves, but for the galaxy that had begun to embrace Earth once more. In the days that followed, I worked with the Resistance to create a network of communication between the planets that were re-establishing trade with Earth. We shared our experiences, not just of triumph, but of caution. "Knowledge is our greatest weapon," I reminded them. "We need to educate others about the forces we've encountered and prepare them for the possibility of darkness." As we organized our efforts, I felt a renewed sense of purpose. We were no longer just survivors. We were guardians of a fragile peace, ready to face whatever lay ahead. Weeks turned into months, and the trade routes flourished, bringing new opportunities and cultures to Earth. The fear that had once gripped the galaxy was slowly fading, replaced by a growing sense of unity. Yet, as we built our alliances and strengthened our defenses, I knew that we couldn't forget the past. One evening, as I stood on the observation deck of the Starfire, watching the stars twinkle against the velvet backdrop of space, I felt a familiar sense of unease. The darkness was still out there, lurking in the depths of the universe, waiting for the right moment to strike. "Captain, we're receiving a transmission from Terk," Rail said, breaking my thoughts. "Put it through," I replied, my curiosity piqued. The screen flickered, and Terk appeared, his expression serious. "Captain Hale, we have reports of disturbances near the old trade routes. Ships have gone missing, and there are whispers of a shadow moving through the sector." My heart raced. "How many ships?" "3 confirmed, possibly more. We're investigating, but the traders are becoming uneasy. They're questioning whether Earth can protect them." "Then we need to act fast," I said, my mind racing. "We can't let fear spread again. We'll send a reconnaissance team to investigate and ensure that whatever is lurking out there doesn't threaten our trade agreements." "Agreed," Terk replied, his expression resolute. "We're counting on you, Marcus. If the shadows are returning, we must confront them before they take root." After ending the communication, I turned to Rail and Arlen. "We need to gather our best crew and prepare the Starfire for a mission. We'll investigate the trade routes and ensure the safety of our merchants." As we prepared for the journey, I felt a mix of anxiety and determination. We had fought back the darkness before, but now it was coming for us again, and we had to be ready. With the crew assembled, we launched into the vastness of space, the familiar hum of the ship vibrating beneath my feet. The stars stretched out before us, a reminder of the infinite possibilities and the lurking dangers. As we traveled deeper into the trade routes, the tension in the ship grew palpable. I could sense the unease among the crew, the lingering fear of the shadows that had once consumed our world. "Stay alert," I instructed, scanning the vastness around us. "We don't know what we're up against." Days passed as we patrolled the sector, gathering information from the traders we encountered. Each report echoed the same unsettling theme: disappearances, shadows flitting at the edges of perception, and a growing dread that threatened to engulf the routes. Finally, we received word of a ship that had gone dark near an abandoned station on the outskirts of the trade routes. The Starfire approached cautiously, our sensors scanning for any signs of life. "Nothing so far," Rail reported, frowning at the readings. "The station seems deserted." "Let's dock and investigate," I ordered, steeling myself for whatever lay ahead. "Stay alert." As we boarded the abandoned station, the air was thick with dust and the remnants of a once bustling hub. The flickering lights cast eerie shadows along the walls, heightening the sense of unease that settled over us. "Keep your eyes peeled," I warned, my senses on high alert. "We don't know what happened here." As we made our way through the corridors, I felt a chill creep down my spine. The shadows danced in the corners of my vision, but I brushed it aside, focusing on the mission at hand. Suddenly, a loud crash echoed from the loading bay. My heart raced as I turned to the sound. "Let's move." We rushed toward the noise, weapons raised and senses heightened. As we entered the loading bay, I froze at the sight before us. A massive creature loomed in the center of the room, its form a mass of shifting shadows and glowing eyes. It turned its gaze toward us, and I felt a wave of dread wash over me. "We need to act fast," Rail shouted, raising his weapon. "Channel the energy," I commanded, feeling the power surge within me. "We can push it back." Together, we focused our energy, directing it toward the creature. The shadows flickered and writhed, but it stood its ground, a force of malevolence that seemed to feed off our fear. With a roar, the creature lunged, and we unleashed a burst of light. The energy collided with the darkness, creating a shockwave that reverberated through the bay. "Keep pushing," I shouted, feeling the power surge within me. The creature writhed, its form distorting as the light began to envelop it. I could feel the energy thrumming in the air, a powerful force that was both exhilarating and terrifying. As the light intensified, the creature shrieked, a sound that echoed through the station, sending shivers down my spine. But we held our ground, channeling our collective strength into a final burst of energy. With one last push, the light exploded from us, engulfing the creature in a blinding brilliance. The shadows screamed and twisted, and then, with a final flash, the creature disintegrated, leaving only a faint shimmer in the air. Breathless, we stood together, the loading bay now silent. The remnants of the darkness faded, replaced by a sense of accomplishment and relief. "We did it," Rail breathed, glancing around the bay. "But what was that thing?" I took a deep breath, my heart still racing. "Whatever it was, it's not gone. We need to inform the others." As we made our way back to the Starfire, I couldn't shake the feeling that this encounter was just the beginning. The shadows were not easily vanquished, and the darkness that had once threatened to consume Earth was still out there, waiting for its next opportunity. Once aboard the ship, I sent out a communication to Terk and the Resistance. "We've faced a creature in the abandoned station, and while we defeated it, we need to be prepared for more." "Understood," Terk replied, his voice steady. "We'll strengthen our defenses and ensure the traders are aware of the potential threat." As we made our way back to Earth, the atmosphere aboard the Starfire was a mixture of relief and trepidation. I couldn't shake the feeling that the shadows were only beginning to stir, and the warnings from the traders weighed heavily on my mind. The darkness had returned, and it wasn't merely a specter of the past, it was a tangible threat, one that could dismantle everything we had worked so hard to rebuild. "Captain Hale," Rail said, breaking my train of thought. "I've been reviewing the logs from the abandoned station. The creature wasn't alone." "What do you mean?" I asked, leaning closer to the display screen he was studying. "The logs indicate multiple sightings of similar entities across the trade routes. Traders reported shadows lurking near their ships, strange energy fluctuations, and vessels going dark without explanation," he explained, his voice tense. "Great. So we're dealing with a coordinated threat," I muttered, rubbing my temples. "What do we do about it?" Arlen joined us, his expression grave. "We need to strengthen our alliances. The more we share information, the better prepared we'll be. The traders must be made aware of the danger, and we should bolster their defenses." "Agreed," I said, nodding. "We'll need to arrange a summit with the key traders and our resistance members. We can't afford to let fear take hold again." As we approached Earth, I felt a strange mix of anxiety and determination. The vibrant blue planet loomed ahead, a symbol of everything we fought for. We had to ensure that it remained safe from the encroaching darkness. Once we docked at the spaceport, I quickly called a meeting with the Resistance leaders and key traders. We gathered in a large conference room, the atmosphere charged with apprehension. "Thank you for coming on such short notice," I began, addressing the assembly. "As many of you are aware, our recent mission uncovered a renewed threat in the form of shadowy creatures lurking in the trade routes. We must act quickly to protect our interests and our people." Murmurs rippled through the crowd. I noticed Terk leaning forward, his brow furrowed. "What do you propose, Captain?" "We need to establish a network of communication between the traders and our resistance," I replied. "This way, we can share information in real time and coordinate our defenses. We can't afford to wait for the darkness to strike before we take action." One of the traders, a burly man named Creel, nodded in agreement. "But how do we defend against something we don't fully understand? We can't just rely on ships and weapons." "That's why we need to strengthen our alliances," I said. "We've faced the darkness before and emerged victorious. But we can't do it alone. We must unify our forces and prepare for the worst." As I spoke, I could see the determination in their eyes begin to take root. The fear that had threatened to engulf them was slowly transforming into resolve. "We should hold training sessions for the traders," Rail suggested. "Teach them how to recognize the signs of danger and how to protect themselves." "Yes, Let's also share our technology, Arlen added. If we can integrate our defenses with their ships, we'll be better equipped to face whatever comes our way. The room buzzed with energy as the traders began to discuss their plans, forging a sense of camaraderie that hadn't existed before. I felt a surge of hope, realizing that we were not just protecting Earth, we were fostering a new alliance among the stars. As the meeting concluded, I pulled Terk aside. I have a feeling that the darkness will not rest until it's claimed what it wants. We need to be prepared for an attack at any moment. I agree, Terk replied, his voice steady. I'll spread the word among the traders and make sure they're ready. If the shadows return, we won't be caught off guard. With our plans set in motion, I returned to the Starfire to oversee the integration of our technology with the traders' ships. I was determined to ensure that every vessel on the trade routes was fortified and ready to face the darkness. Days turned into weeks as we worked tirelessly, sharing knowledge and resources, conducting training sessions, and fortifying our defenses. The atmosphere was electric with purpose, the fear of the unknown now transformed into determination to stand united. Then, one evening, as I was reviewing the latest reports from our reconnaissance teams, a warning signal blared across the Starfire's bridge. My heart raced as I rushed to the control panel. Rail, what's going on? I demanded. We're receiving a distress signal from a merchant ship near the outskirts of the trade routes, he replied, his fingers flying across the controls. They're reporting multiple shadows closing in on their position. Bring up the coordinates, I ordered, adrenaline surging through me. The screen flickered to life, displaying a small merchant vessel surrounded by a swarm of dark shapes. Set a course, we need to assist them. Within moments, the Starfire was in motion, racing through the stars toward the merchant ship. My heart pounded as I prepared the crew for what lay ahead. This was it, the moment we had been anticipating, the confrontation with the darkness that had haunted us. As we approached, I could see the shadows flickering in and out of existence, their forms writhing like smoke in the void. Weapons hot, I commanded. Prepare to engage. Captain, we have visual on the merchant vessel, Rail shouted, the tension palpable. They're taking heavy damage. Open a channel, I ordered. Merchant ship, this is Captain Marcus Hale of the Starfire. We're here to assist you. Hold your position. Captain Hale, we're under attack. A voice crackled through the comms, filled with panic. The shadows are everywhere. We can't hold them off. Stay strong. We're coming in hot, I replied, my resolve hardening. As we closed in, I felt the familiar rush of energy surging through me. The darkness writhed around the merchant vessel, and I knew we had to act swiftly. Arlen, get ready to channel our energy. Aye, Captain, he replied, his eyes narrowing as he focused. The shadows began to converge on the merchant ship, their forms twisting in a chaotic dance. Now, I shouted, and we unleashed a wave of light toward the encroaching darkness. The energy surged forward, light the void and pushing back against the shadows. The shrieks of the creatures echoed through the comms, mingling with the cries of the merchant crew. Keep pushing, Rail urged, his hands gripping the controls. We need to create a safe corridor for them. As our light clashed with the shadows, I could feel the intensity of the battle escalating. The darkness fought back fiercely, but we were determined not to yield. We will protect them, I yelled, channeling every ounce of energy I had. The shadows twisted and shrieked, attempting to envelop our light, but we held firm. With a final surge, our energy exploded in a radiant flash that cut through the darkness, creating a path for the merchant ship. Go, now, I shouted, my voice raw with effort. The merchant vessel surged forward, escaping the grasp of the shadows as we continued to channel our light against the encroaching darkness. The shadows hissed and twisted, retreating from our combined might. Just when it seemed like victory was at hand, a massive figure emerged from the shadows, a creature larger than any we had faced before, its eyes burning with malevolence. It roared, the sound vibrating through the hull of the Starfire, and I felt a wave of dread wash over me. This one is different, Arlen shouted, his voice filled with urgency. We need to concentrate all our energy on it. Prepare for a full assault, I commanded, my heart racing. We fight together. As we united our strength, the battle intensified. The massive creature lunged at us, and I could see the darkness swirling around it, feeding off its anger and power. We had to stand firm against it. Now, together, I urged, focusing all our energy into a singular beam of light aimed directly at the creature. The light surged forward, light the space with a brilliance that momentarily blinded us all. The creature howled, thrashing against the force, but we pushed harder, determined to vanquish this embodiment of darkness. With one final push, our energy exploded into a blinding flash that engulfed the creature entirely. Its roar echoed in the void as it disintegrated, the shadows evaporating into the ether. Breathless and battered, we stood together on the bridge, the remnants of the darkness fading into the background. The merchant ship had escaped, and we had triumphed once more. "Status report," I barked, my heart still racing. "We've managed to repel the shadows," Rail replied, a note of disbelief in his voice. "But we need to regroup and check on the merchant vessel." "Let's do it," I said, feeling a wave of relief wash over me. We may have won this battle, but the war is far from over. As we set course to reconnect with a merchant ship, I felt a mixture of pride and determination. Together, we had faced the darkness and emerged victorious. But the shadows were cunning, and I knew they would return. With each encounter, we were growing stronger, learning to harness our abilities and unite against the threats that loomed on the horizon. The future was uncertain, but I felt a sense of purpose in my heart. We were humanity, and we would rise against the darkness together. After our harrowing encounter with the shadows, the atmosphere aboard the Starfire was electrified with adrenaline and determination. We had saved the merchant vessel and struck a blow against the darkness, but a lingering unease remained in the air. The shadows were not easily defeated, and the threat they posed felt more ominous than ever. As we docked alongside the merchant ship, I made my way to the hangar bay, eager to meet the crew we had rescued. Their faces were etched with fear and gratitude, and I knew they had seen the horrors that lurked in the void. Captain Hale, a tall, weathered man, approached, his expression a mix of relief and exhaustion. "Thank you for coming to our aid. We thought it was the end." "I'm glad we could help," I replied, shaking his hand firmly. "I'm Captain Marcus Hale of the Starfire. What's your name?" "Captain Renaud," he said, nodding appreciatively. "I've been navigating these trade routes for over a decade, and I've never seen anything like that. Those shadows, they were like nothing we've faced before." "We've seen them too," I said, my voice steady. "They're growing bolder, and we need to prepare. How many others have encountered them?" "Too many," Renaud admitted, his gaze dropping. "We've lost vessels traders who didn't make it back. The fear is spreading, and many are refusing to travel the Earth routes. They're too scared." I felt a pang of frustration at his words. We had fought hard to rebuild our connections and trust after the chaos that had nearly shattered Earth's standing in the galaxy. The last thing we needed was for fear to cripple our commerce. "We can't let them win," I said firmly. "We need to unite our efforts, share knowledge, and strengthen our defenses. Together, we can face this darkness." Renaud nodded, but I could see the doubt lingering in his eyes. "You're right, but convincing the others will be a challenge. Many are considering abandoning the trade routes altogether. Then we need to hold a summit, bring together all the traders, share what we've learned, and show them they're not alone in this fight," I proposed. "We can't let fear dictate our future." "I'll do what I can," Renaud agreed, determination creeping back into his voice. "But we'll need evidence to sway the others. They need to see that fighting back is possible." As we prepared to leave, I shared my plans with Rail and Arlen. "We need to gather as much intel as possible about these shadows. I want to know where they've been sighted, how they operate, and if there's any way to predict their movements." "Sounds good," Rail replied, his brows furrowing in concentration. "I'll analyze the logs we've collected from our encounters. Maybe we can find patterns in their behavior." Perfect, I said, feeling the fire of purpose igniting within me. We'll also reach out to other merchant crews, gather their stories. If we can present a united front at the summit, we might be able to convince them to join our cause. Days turned into a blur of activity as we worked tirelessly, analyzing data, reaching out to other traders, and preparing for the summit. I could see a shift in the atmosphere. The fear that had once held everyone captive was slowly giving way to resolve and determination. Finally, the day of the summit arrived. We gathered in a large conference room aboard the Starfire, the walls adorned with holographic displays showcasing the trade routes and the locations of recent shadow sightings. The room buzzed with anticipation as traders filed in, their expressions a mixture of skepticism and curiosity. "Thank you all for coming," I began, stepping forward to address the assembly. "We're here today because the darkness we've faced is a threat to us all, but together, we have the power to fight back." The murmurs in the crowd grew louder, and I sensed the skepticism lingering in the air. "You've all heard the stories of the shadows, but I want you to hear ours, what we've experienced and how we fought back." I shared our recent encounters, detailing the creature we had faced and the strategies we had employed. The room grew quieter as I spoke, the traders leaning in, drawn by the weight of my words. Rail chimed in, presenting our findings on the patterns of shadow activity. "We've analyzed reports from multiple sources, and we believe we can identify the areas most at risk. If we can coordinate our routes and stay vigilant, we can minimize the danger." One of the traders, a stern-looking man named Harlan, stood up, arms crossed. "That's all well and good, but how can we be sure we won't lose more ships? I've already lost 2 crews to those things. What makes you think we can win?" I met his gaze, unwavering. "Because we've already begun to fight. We've faced the darkness and emerged victorious. But we can't do it alone. Fear only weakens us. If we unite, share our knowledge, and bolster our defenses, we can reclaim our trade routes and protect our people." The tension in the room shifted as more traders began to speak up, sharing their experiences and expressing their willingness to fight back. It was a slow process, but I could see the seeds of camaraderie beginning to take root. As the meeting continued, I felt a growing sense of hope. We had begun to build an alliance, one that could withstand the darkness that threatened us. But just as things began to look promising, the room fell silent as a familiar voice rang out. "Captain Hale." It was Terk, his face pale as he stepped into the room. "We've received a report of a massive shadow entity moving toward one of the trade routes. It's heading straight for a convoy of merchant ships." My heart dropped. "How many vessels?" 3 merchant ships and their escorts," Terk replied, urgency in his voice. "They're unprepared for an attack of this magnitude." "Damn it," I muttered, feeling the weight of responsibility crash over me. "We need to act quickly. Gather the traders and our ships. We're heading out to intercept that entity." Without hesitation, the traders sprang into action, urgency propelling them into motion. "Let's move," I shouted, rallying my crew and the traders. "We'll protect those ships." As we boarded the Starfire, I could feel the adrenaline coursing through my veins. The fear that had once gripped the traders was now transformed into a fierce determination to fight back against the shadows. "Set course for the convoy," I commanded, my hands gripping the controls. "We need to reach them before it's too late." As we flew through the stars, I could see the lights of the convoy shimmering in the distance, but I could also see the massive shadows swirling around them. It was a sight that sent chills down my spine, an ominous cloud of darkness that seemed to absorb the very light around it. "There it is," Rail shouted, pointing at the screen. "We need to engage before it reaches the ships." "Prepare to fire," I ordered, my heart racing. "We'll strike with everything we have." As we closed in, the shadows writhed and twisted, almost alive in their movements. I could feel the weight of the battle bearing down on us. This wasn't just a fight for survival, it was a battle for our future. "Now," I commanded, and we unleashed our energy, a beam of light bursting forth to pierce through the darkness. The shadow entity screeched, its form contorting in response to our attack. The merchant ships began to scatter, their crews doing everything they could to evade the impending threat. "Keep the convoy together," I shouted. "We have to protect them." Arlen and Rail worked in tandem, channeling our energy into a focused beam aimed directly at the heart of the shadow. The energy crackled and surged, light the space around us. "Push harder," I urged, feeling the energy swell within me. "We can't let it escape." The shadow shrieked in defiance, striking back against our light. I could feel the darkness pressing in, trying to envelop us, but we stood our ground. With every ounce of strength, we fought back, the light pulsing around us like a living thing. The shadow entity lunged toward one of the merchant ships, its tendrils reaching out in a desperate grasp. "No," I shouted, channeling all my energy into a final burst of light. "Protect the ship." Our combined power exploded forward, colliding with the shadow and light the void. For a moment, the darkness seemed to falter, and I could see the terrified faces of the merchant crews, watching in awe as we fought to save them. But the entity roared, retaliating with a surge of darkness that crashed against our light. I felt the impact shake the starfire, and I knew we had to rally together to withstand the onslaught. "Focus. Channel your energy into the light," I commanded, feeling the rush of power surge through me as I gathered the last remnants of my strength. With one final push, we unleashed a torrent of brilliance that erupted from the starfire, pushing back against the shadow entity. The darkness writhed and twisted, caught in the struggle between light and dark. For a moment, it seemed as though we would be overwhelmed. The shadows screamed, their tendrils curling and reaching for us. But we would not yield. With a final surge of energy, the light burst forth, enveloping the shadow and driving it back into the depths of the void. The entity shrieked in fury, its form collapsing in on itself, until at last it dissolved into nothingness. The silence that followed was deafening. I took a deep breath, feeling the adrenaline begin to fade, replaced by a sense of triumph. We had faced the darkness and emerged victorious, but I knew this was only the beginning. "Status report," I called out, my heart racing as I surveyed the scene. The convoy was shaken but intact, the merchant ships hovering in the aftermath of our battle. "We did it," Rail shouted, his face beaming with exhilaration. "We saved them." The traders began to cheer, their relief palpable as they recognized the strength we had found in unity. I felt a swell of pride in my chest. We were more than just individuals. We had become a force to be reckoned with. But as I looked into the starry expanse, I knew the shadows would return. Our battle was far from over, and the darkness lurking in the void would test us again. Yet I also understood that fear would no longer hold us captive. Together, we would stand against the darkness, wielding the light of our unity as a weapon against the night. And as we prepared to escort the merchant vessels back to safety, I felt a renewed sense of purpose. This was our moment, a turning point in the fight for our future. The shadows may come again, but we were ready. We were humanity, and we would face the darkness together. We had begun to forge a new destiny, and I was determined to ensure it would not be one written in fear, but in courage and resilience. The stars were ours, and we would reclaim our place among them. As we navigated through the cosmos, I knew our story was just beginning. The challenges ahead would be great, but I would face them with my crew by my side. The darkness would not extinguish our light. We would rise, we would fight, and we would not back down. I felt the weight of responsibility on my shoulders, but it was a burden I would gladly carry, for we were humanity, and we would not be afraid. We would shine, and we would do so together. The journey back to the spaceport was a whirlwind of triumph and relief. The merchant vessels, once trembling in fear, now moved with a newfound confidence. We had faced the shadow entity, and against all odds, we had emerged victorious. But beneath the exhilaration lay an unsettling truth. We were not yet free from the clutches of the darkness that prowled the stars. As we docked, the hangar bay buzzed with activity. Crew members rushed to secure the merchant ships, and traders gathered to share tales of our recent battle. I could see the transformation in their faces. Fear was being replaced by resilience, and uncertainty was giving way to determination. "Captain Hale," Renaud approached me, his eyes gleaming with excitement. "We did it. You inspired them to fight back." "Yeah, but we have to keep that momentum going," I replied, scanning the room for familiar faces. "This isn't over. We need to prepare for whatever comes next." "I've already begun reaching out to other trade crews," Renaud said, his voice tinged with urgency. "We need to solidify our alliance before the shadows can strike again." "Good thinking," I said, appreciating his proactive approach. "Let's also set up a communication network. If anyone encounters the shadows again, we need to be alerted immediately." As the traders gathered around, I took a moment to address them. "We fought bravely today, and we proved that together we can face any threat. But we must remain vigilant. The shadows will come for us again, and we need to be ready." A murmur of agreement rippled through the crowd. I could see the determination etched into their faces, a spark igniting within them that hadn't been there before. Over the next few days, we worked tirelessly to strengthen our alliance. Renaud coordinated with other captains, and we created a network of communication that would allow us to share information quickly. We held strategy meetings, brainstorming tactics for the inevitable future confrontations with the shadows. One evening, as we gathered in the conference room of the Starfire, I noticed Rail staring intently at the display. "Captain," he said, breaking the silence, "I think I've found something. I've been analyzing the reports, and there's a pattern in the shadow sightings." "Go on," I urged, leaning forward. "The shadows seem to appear near specific trade routes, but they also coincide with increased ship activity in certain sectors. It's almost as if they're reacting to our movements." "Are you suggesting they're targeting us?" Arlen asked, his brow furrowing. "I believe so," Rail confirmed. "They might be drawn to the trade routes due to the increased commerce, or perhaps they're reacting to our alliance. It's as if they're trying to undermine our efforts." I felt a chill run down my spine. If that's the case, we need to change our tactics. We can't let them dictate our movements. "Agreed," Renaud interjected. "What if we spread out our ships and varied our routes? It might confuse them, make it harder for them to predict our movements." "Good idea," I said, nodding. "But we also need to ensure that we don't leave any convoy unprotected. I want to establish regular patrols and scouting missions to keep an eye on the areas most affected." As the meeting progressed, we devised a plan to disrupt the shadows' patterns. The atmosphere was charged with purpose, and I could see the resolve in the traders' faces. We would not back down, we would adapt, and we would fight. Days turned into weeks as we implemented our strategies. Our trade routes became a tapestry of movement, each vessel weaving a unique path through the stars. The shadows remained silent, their presence elusive, but we knew it was only a matter of time before they struck again. One evening, as I stood on the observation deck of the Starfire, gazing at the stars, I felt a sense of restlessness. The calm before the storm was almost unbearable. Rail joined me, his expression thoughtful. "Captain, do you think we're doing enough?" he asked, his voice barely above a whisper. "The shadows haven't shown themselves in a while, and I can't shake the feeling that they're planning something." "I feel it too," I admitted, crossing my arms. "But we're doing everything we can. We've built an alliance, established communication networks, and varied our routes. We're ready for whatever comes next." "Or so we hope," Rail murmured, his gaze drifting to the star-studded sky. "But we can't let our guard down. I'd rather face the shadows head-on than wait for them to catch us off guard." "I agree," I said, feeling the weight of his words. "We need to stay proactive. I'm planning a scouting mission to the outer trade routes. I want to see if there's been any activity." "Count me in," Rail replied, determination flashing in his eyes. "I'll gather a crew and prepare the Starfire for departure." The following day, we set out on our mission. The Starfire glided through the cosmos, the familiar hum of the engines a comfort as we traveled deeper into the void. The stars flickered around us, and I couldn't shake the feeling that we were being watched. As we approached the outer trade routes, I noticed something unusual on the sensors. "Rail, check that anomaly," I said, pointing at the display. "It looks like we're picking up a faint signal." "On it," he replied, fingers dancing across the console. The screen flickered, and the image of a small, damaged ship materialized. "It's an old merchant vessel. They're sending out a distress signal." "Can you pinpoint their location?" I asked, my heart racing. "Yeah, but it's going to take us a while to reach them," Rail said, narrowing his eyes. "We'll have to push the engines to their limits." "Let's do it," I replied. "We need to find out what happened to them. They could have encountered the shadows." As we accelerated, I felt a mix of anticipation and dread. If the shadows had struck again, we needed to be ready to respond. The thought of another attack weighed heavily on my mind. Finally, we arrived at the coordinates. The damaged vessel floated adrift, its hull scarred and battered. What happened to them? I wondered aloud as we maneuvered the Starfire alongside. Rail activated the comms. "This is Captain Hale of the Starfire. We're here to assist. Can you hear us?" Silence filled the air, thick with tension. After a moment, a crackling voice came through, weak and strained. "Help, please. We're under attack. Shadows, so many shadows." "Hold on. We're sending a boarding party," I shouted, adrenaline surging through my veins. "Rail, Arlen, with me," I commanded as I gathered my gear. "We need to board that ship and see if anyone is alive." As we stepped onto the derelict vessel, a chill enveloped us. The air was thick with dread, and the darkness seemed to pulse around us. I motioned for silence, our footsteps echoing through the empty corridors. "Split up," I whispered. "We need to find any survivors quickly." We moved through the ship, scanning for signs of life. The flickering lights cast eerie shadows on the walls, and I couldn't shake the feeling that we were not alone. "Over here," Arlen called, his voice a sharp contrast to the silence. We rushed to his side, finding a crew member huddled in a corner, visibly shaken. "What happened?" I demanded, kneeling beside him. We were attacked," he stammered, eyes wide with terror. "The shadows came out of nowhere. They ripped through our hull. We tried to escape, but they—" "Where are the others?" Rail pressed, urgency in his tone. "Gone," the crew member whispered, shaking his head. "They took them. I was the only one who managed to hide. I thought I was done for." I felt a surge of anger. "We need to get you out of here. Can you walk?" He nodded, still trembling, and we helped him to his feet. "Let's move," I urged, leading the way back to the airlock. As we made our way back, I felt a growing sense of unease. The shadows were out there, lurking, and they wouldn't let us escape unscathed. Suddenly, the ship shuddered violently, the alarms blaring around us. "What the hell was that?" I shouted, scrambling for stability. "We're being boarded," Rail yelled, glancing back at the crew member. "We need to move now." With adrenaline coursing through my veins, we raced through the darkened corridors, desperate to reach the Starfire before the shadows could close in on us. "Stay close," I shouted, pushing the crew member forward as we navigated the twisted passages. But as we reached the airlock, I felt a cold rush of air behind us. The shadows were here. I spun around, my heart racing as I caught a glimpse of writhing darkness pouring into the ship. "Go. Get to the Starfire. We'll hold them off." "Marcus, we can't," Rail protested, his face pale. "We need to stick together." "I'll cover you," I insisted, adrenaline flooding my veins. "Get him out of here. I'll be right behind you." With a reluctant nod, Rail pushed the crew member through the airlock. "We'll wait for you," he shouted as the door closed behind them. The shadows advanced, their forms twisting and shifting as they bore down on me. I braced myself, my heart pounding in my chest, ready to face the oncoming tide of darkness. "Come on," I shouted, trying to muster every ounce of courage. I had fought these shadows before. I wouldn't let them take me without a fight. As they surged forward, I drew my weapon, firing into the darkness. The blasts of energy light their forms, and I could hear their shrieks echoing through the corridors. But there were too many of them. The shadows swarmed, and I felt the cold tendrils wrapping around me, pulling me into their embrace. In that moment, I realized I had underestimated their power. I struggled against the darkness, but it tightened its grip, pulling me deeper into the void. Just when I thought all was lost, a brilliant light erupted from behind me. I turned, and through the haze, I saw the familiar glow of the Starfire's engines igniting. Rael and Arlen had come back for me. With renewed strength, they fired into the shadows, and I felt their grip loosen. "We've got you!" Rael shouted, extending his hand. I lunged toward them, grasping Rael's arm as they pulled me back toward the light. Together, we fought against the encroaching darkness, pushing it back as we stumbled into the airlock. "Close it!" I shouted, and Arlen slammed the door shut just as the shadows collided with it, their howls reverberating through the metal. We stood there, panting, our hearts racing as we regained our bearings. The crew member slumped against the wall, relief flooding his features. "We made it," I gasped, still shaken. "But they'll be back." "Not if we can help it," Rael replied, determination etched in his expression. "We'll regroup, and we'll prepare for them next time." I nodded, knowing the fight was far from over. We had faced the shadows and survived, but the looming threat still hung over us. We needed to take the fight to them before they could strike again. As the Starfire pulled away from the damaged ship, I glanced back at the swirling darkness, a fierce resolve settling within me. We would not run. We would stand our ground. The shadows may come for us, but we would face them together. Humanity would not be afraid. We were the light in the darkness, and we would shine brighter than ever. The tension hung heavy in the air as we navigated back to the safety of the Starfire. The ship hummed with energy, but beneath that surface vibrance was an undercurrent of anxiety. The shadows had returned, and we had barely escaped their grasp. I could still hear their eerie howls echoing in my mind, a chilling reminder of the darkness lurking just beyond the light. Once we docked, the crew member we rescued, Marcus, was escorted to the medical bay for a thorough checkup. Rael and I gathered in the command center, the glow of the control panels casting flickering shadows across our faces. "We need to spread the word," Rael said, his brows furrowed with concern. "The shadows are evolving. They're becoming more aggressive, and if we don't warn the others, more lives could be at stake." I nodded, a knot tightening in my stomach. "Let's call an emergency meeting with the other captains. We need to fortify our defenses and develop a unified strategy." As we reached out to the other vessels, I noticed a shift in our surroundings. Fear had become an omnipresent specter. It wasn't just the traders who felt it. Even the crew members aboard the Starfire wore expressions of uncertainty. We had rallied once before, but this time felt different. When the captains gathered in the conference room, the atmosphere was tense. Faces were drawn, and murmurs of discontent rippled through the crowd. It was clear that the earlier sense of unity was fraying. "Thank you all for coming on such short notice," I began, standing at the head of the table. "As you know, we encountered the shadows again, and they're not merely a passing threat. They've become more organized, more relentless." "They took my crew," a captain shouted, slamming his fist on the table. "We can't continue these trade routes. It's too dangerous." "That's exactly what they want," I countered, holding my ground. "If we cower, they win. We need to come together and confront this menace head-on. Strength lies in unity." "But how can we fight what we can't understand?" another captain interjected. "What if we're just feeding them? What if they grow stronger because of our fear?" A ripple of agreement coursed through the room. The murmurs grew louder, and I could feel the tide turning against me. "We have to face our fear," I pressed, desperation seeping into my voice. "Hiding won't protect us. We have to strategize, train, and prepare." "Prepare for what?" someone shouted. "Death. We have families waiting for us. What if we don't make it back?" "I can't lose anyone else," Rael murmured, his voice strained. "But I can't stand idly by while others are hurt. We have to act, but we need a plan." Silence fell over the room as everyone turned to Rail. His words resonated with the crew, a reminder of our shared struggle. I took a breath, seizing the moment. Let's formulate a tactical response. We can divide into smaller groups to gather intel. We can set up safe zones along the trade routes, places to retreat if we're attacked. What about sending out scouts? Suggested a captain, his eyes alight with a flicker of hope. If we can gather information on their movements, maybe we can predict their strikes. Exactly, I said, feeling the energy shift. We can create a network of scouts to watch for shadows, and we'll reinforce our ships with enhanced shields. We may not know what they are, but we can prepare ourselves for the fight. Reluctantly, the captains began to nod, their expressions shifting from fear to resolve. One by one, they pledged to help, and as the plan took shape, I felt the weight of their hope, our hope beginning to lift the fog of despair. Let's get to work, I said, invigorated by the surge of camaraderie. We have a battle to prepare for, and this time, we won't face it alone. We broke off into smaller groups, coordinating assignments and responsibilities. Rail and I took the lead in devising training drills, preparing our crews to face the shadows head-on. The initial fear that had gripped us was transforming into a determined spirit of resilience. In the following days, we trained relentlessly. Our crew members worked side by side, learning to navigate the darkness together. Every drill, every simulation, brought us closer, fortifying our bonds as we transformed fear into strength. But amidst our preparations, the shadows lingered at the edges of our minds. They were an omnipresent threat, a specter that refused to fade, and we could feel their gaze upon us. One night, after an intense training session, I found myself on the observation deck again, staring at the endless void of space. Rail joined me, his expression contemplative. "Do you think we're doing enough?" he asked, concern etched into his features. "What if the shadows come before we're ready?" "We can't let doubt dictate our actions," I replied, looking out at the stars. "We're learning, adapting. We can't control when they strike, but we can control how we respond." I don't want to lose anyone else," Rail confessed, his voice barely above a whisper. I turned to him, empathy swelling within me. "Neither do I. But we have to remember that we're not alone in this. We have each other, and we'll fight for everyone who can't fight for themselves." The following day, as the sun dipped below the horizon, casting an ethereal glow across the stars, we initiated our first scouting mission. Rail led a team of volunteers aboard the Starfire, while I coordinated with the other captains to establish communication between our ships. As we ventured into the depths of space, anticipation coursed through me. We were stepping into the unknown, but there was an undeniable thrill in our unity. "Keep your eyes peeled for any anomalies," I instructed the crew, the tension palpable in the air. "We're looking for anything unusual, shadow activity, other ships, anything." Hours passed as we scanned the surrounding space, but the stillness was unsettling. Just as I began to wonder if the shadows had truly retreated, a warning flashed on the sensors. "Captain," Rail's voice broke through the silence, urgency lacing his tone. "I'm picking up multiple energy signatures ahead. They're massive." "Are they ours?" I asked, gripping the console tightly. "No, they're not," he replied, a hint of panic creeping into his voice. "They're closing in fast." "Brace for impact," I shouted, adrenaline surging through my veins. The Starfire shook violently as the energy signatures emerged from the darkness, massive shadow vessels, their forms indistinct and menacing, moving swiftly toward us. "Evade," I barked, my heart racing. "Get us out of here." The crew scrambled to respond, the engines roaring as we veered away from the incoming threat. I could see the shadows forming behind us, dark tendrils stretching out as if reaching for our ship. "Captain, they're pursuing us," Rail shouted, his face pale. "We need to engage." "Not yet," I replied, trying to regain my composure. "We need to lead them away from the others. We can't let them attack the trade routes." "Where do you want to go?" Rail asked, his voice steadying. "Head toward the asteroid field," I commanded. knowing it was a risky move but our only option. We can use it to our advantage. Let's lose them in the debris. As we plunged into the asteroid field, the ship jolted violently, the rocks whizzing past us like lethal projectiles. I could hear the shadows close behind us, their eerie shrieks reverberating through the hull of the Starfire. "Hold steady," I shouted, my heart racing as I navigated through the chaos. The ship shook as we narrowly avoided an asteroid, but the shadows were relentless, pursuing us into the field. "Focus on the maneuvers," Rail yelled, determination etched in his expression. "We can outsmart them." I steered the Starfire deeper into the labyrinth of rocks, my pulse pounding in sync with the ship's engines. The shadows seemed to hesitate, their forms flickering as they lost sight of us among the debris. "Now's our chance," I said, adrenaline surging through me. "Let's hit them." As we swung around an asteroid, I could see the shadow vessels struggling to regain their footing. "Fire," I commanded, and the Starfire unleashed a torrent of energy blast into the shadows. The darkness writhed and shrieked as our shots connected, light the void with bursts of brilliant light. I could feel the tide shifting. For the first time, we were taking the fight to them. "We're making a dent," Rail shouted, excitement filling his voice. "Keep firing." As we pressed the attack, I felt a surge of hope. We had taken a stand against the darkness, and we were proving that we would not be easy prey. But just as victory seemed within reach, a massive shadow vessel emerged from behind an asteroid, looming ominously over us. I froze, my breath catching in my throat. "It's too big," Rail shouted, panic rising in his voice. "We can't take that on." "Hold steady," I gritted my teeth, determination flaring within me. "We can't back down now. We have to find a way to—" Before I could finish, the shadow vessel fired, and the blast connected with the Starfire, sending us spiraling through the debris field. "Brace for impact," I yelled, desperately trying to regain control. We careened off an asteroid, the ship shuddering violently as alarms blared. "Status report," I barked, heart racing. "We're losing power," Rail shouted, panic lacing his voice. "Shields are down." "Get us back on course," I demanded, adrenaline coursing through me. "We need to regroup with the others." With every ounce of strength, I fought to stabilize the ship. We were battered and bruised, but we were not out yet. The shadows may have the upper hand, but we had one final chance to turn the tide. "Get ready to fire at my command," I shouted, determination igniting within me. "We're not done fighting." As the shadows closed in, their darkness wrapping around us like a vice, I felt the weight of our mission bearing down. We had faced the darkness and survived, and now we would rise together to reclaim our light. Humanity would not fall to fear. We would stand strong against the shadows that threatened our existence. Together, we would forge a path through the darkness and emerge victorious. But first, we needed to survive this encounter. I took a deep breath, prepared to fight to the last breath, knowing that the shadows could not extinguish our light. The Starfire trembled under the assault, but I refused to let panic consume me. We had come too far and fought too hard to let the shadows snuff out our flame now. I could feel Rail's gaze fixed on me, his trust in my decisions a silent source of strength. "Captain, we need to stabilize the ship," he shouted, fingers flying over the control panel. "We've lost power in the aft thrusters." "Can you reroute energy from the forward shields?" I asked, trying to think through the chaos. "I can try," he replied, his voice tense. "But it'll take a moment. We might not have that long." I glanced back at the shadow vessel looming ominously before us. It was massive, its form twisting and pulsing like a living organism, with tendrils stretching out as if tasting the air around it. Fear clawed at my insides, but I pushed it aside. We were warriors, not victims. "Prepare to engage," I commanded, knowing we were on borrowed time. "On my mark, we'll launch a full barrage." Rail nodded, his fingers deftly manipulating the controls as he rerouted the power. I could see the energy levels fluctuating on the readout, but it wouldn't hold for long. "I've got the energy back up in the forward weapons. We're ready when you are." As I readied myself, I stole a glance at the view screen. The shadow vessel surged forward, its tendrils writhing as if anticipating our impending doom. We were outnumbered, but we would not be outmatched. "Now," I shouted, and Rael unleashed a volley of energy blasts toward the advancing darkness. The projectile streaked through the void, light the shadows for a brief moment. The first shots hit the shadow vessel, and I could almost feel the ship shudder as if in pain. The darkness writhed and twisted, but it pressed on, relentless. "Keep firing," I urged, adrenaline surging through me. "Don't let up." We continued to fire, our shots tearing through the darkness, but the vessel's size seemed to absorb the hits, its advance unyielding. I could see the energy levels dropping with each pulse of fire, and my heart raced with each second that passed. "Captain, we can't keep this up," Rael shouted, his voice laced with urgency. "We need to get out of here, now." "No," I replied firmly, unwilling to yield. "We can't let them escape. If we do, they'll come for us again, and next time they won't stop until we're all dead." "Then what's the plan?" he pressed, fear creeping into his voice. "We can't outrun them." "Maybe we don't need to outrun them," I said, a thought forming in my mind. "We just need to outsmart them. Is there any way to redirect the energy to create a localized pulse?" "Not without risking a critical overload," Rael exclaimed, disbelief etched on his face. "We can't afford to be cautious," I insisted, my heart racing. "If we can create a disruption, it might buy us enough time to escape." Rael hesitated for a moment, weighing the risks. But then he met my gaze, and I saw the resolve harden in his expression. "All right, I'll reroute the power, but we need to be quick." As he began adjusting the controls, I focused on the shadow vessel, willing it to falter. I could feel the energy shifting within the Starfire, a tingling sensation pulsing through the ship as Rael worked. "Almost there," he said, sweat beading on his brow. "Just a few more seconds." The shadow vessel surged forward, tendrils whipping through the void as it prepared to strike. My pulse quickened. "Get ready." "Ready," Rael shouted, his fingers flying over the console as he initiated the sequence. A powerful pulse erupted from the Starfire, reverberating through the darkness like a shockwave. The energy surged forth, crashing against the shadow vessel and causing it to convulse violently. "Now's our chance," I yelled, seizing the moment. "Full reverse, let's get out of here." The Starfire shuddered as we executed the maneuver, retreating from the chaos. I could see the shadow vessel struggle against the energy pulse, its form flickering as it fought to regain stability. "Hold on," Rael shouted, his voice strained as he maintained our trajectory. The ship shook violently, the alarms blaring as we pushed the engines to their limits. I could feel the pressure building, but we pressed on, determination driving us forward. As we veered away from the chaos, I took one last glance back at the shadow vessel. It was still reeling from our attack, its tendrils thrashing wildly in the void. We had given ourselves a chance to escape. "Keep moving," I shouted, urgency flooding my voice. "We need to regroup with the others." Rael nodded, his focus unwavering as he navigated through the debris field. I could feel the ship stabilizing beneath us, the wild shakes diminishing as we broke free from the chaos. As we exited the asteroid field, a sense of relief washed over me. We had faced the shadows and emerged alive, but the battle was far from over. "Captain," a voice crackled over the comms, cutting through the silence. "This is Captain Elan from the Raven's Wing. We detected a massive energy pulse near your location. What happened?" I took a breath, steeling myself. "We engaged a shadow vessel. It was unlike anything we've encountered before, massive and relentless. We managed to escape, but they're adapting, and they won't stop coming." "Understood. We're heading your way to regroup," Captain Elan replied, determination in his voice. "We can't allow them to threaten our trade routes. We need to stand united." I could feel a swell of hope rising within me. We were not alone in this fight. Together, we would confront the shadows, and together we would reclaim our space. "Meet us at the coordinates we discussed earlier," I said, urgency fueling my words. We need to prepare for what's coming. As we navigated toward the rendezvous point, I took a moment to gather my thoughts. The shadows were more dangerous than I had ever imagined, but we had faced them once and emerged victorious. Now it was time to turn the tide. When we arrived at the coordinates, I saw the familiar silhouettes of other ships assembling. The Raven's wing docked alongside us, and Captain Ilan stepped aboard the Starfire to join our council. "Thank you for responding so quickly," I said, relieved to see him. "We've lost valuable time, and the shadows won't wait." Ilan nodded, his expression serious. "What's our plan?" "We need to gather our resources," I replied, my mind racing with possibilities. "We can set up a perimeter around the trade routes, fortified with energy shields. If we can detect their approach early enough, we'll have a fighting chance." "Agreed," Ilan said, his eyes scanning the gathered captains. "But we'll need every ship in this fleet to cooperate. We can't afford any dissent." I could feel the weight of those words. Trust was fragile among us, and fear could easily undo our hard-earned unity. "We've faced the shadows together, and we've seen the consequences of fear," I said, addressing the assembled captains. "If we stand united, we can protect our people. But we must be willing to confront the darkness together." Some captains nodded in agreement, while others shifted uneasily. I could feel the tension in the air, the doubt clinging to us like a shroud. "Trust is key," Rail added, his voice steady. "If we want to protect our trade routes, we need to believe in one another. We've seen the shadows retreat before, and we can make them fear us, too." "Let's send scouts to the outer edges of our routes," Ilan suggested, regaining momentum. "If we can establish a network of communication, we can detect their movements before they reach us." The plan began to take shape, our discussions growing more animated as we pooled our resources and ideas. It felt good to work together, the fear transforming into determination as we laid the groundwork for our defense. As the night wore on, we devised a comprehensive strategy. Each captain was assigned a specific sector to monitor, and we reinforced our ships with upgraded shields and weaponry. We would be ready when the shadows returned. As we finalized our plans, I felt a flicker of hope within me. Together, we had turned our fear into action. The shadows may have thought they could prey upon us, but we would show them the strength of humanity's resolve. The following morning, the sun rose over the fleet, casting a golden light across the gathered ships. We were ready, and I could feel the energy buzzing in the air, a palpable tension mixed with determination. "Let's move out," I said, my voice steady. "We're stronger together, and we'll show the shadows that humanity will not back down." With that, we set our course for the trade routes, a united front ready to face whatever the shadows had in store for us. The time for fear had passed. It was time to fight back. As we ventured into the depths of space, I couldn't shake the feeling that we were standing on the precipice of something monumental. The shadows were lurking, but they would learn that humanity had teeth, and we were ready to bite back. Whatever awaited us in the void, we would face it together. As we entered the trade routes, the atmosphere aboard the Starfire buzzed with tension and anticipation. The crew, once consumed by fear, now radiated resolve. Each man and woman was aware of the shadows lurking just beyond the stars, and we were determined to confront them head-on. "Captain," Rail called, breaking me from my thoughts. "We're approaching the designated monitoring points. The fleet is in position." "Good," I replied, scanning the monitors displaying the fleet's locations. "Let's ensure communication is tight. We can't afford any gaps in our defenses." The trade routes were more than just paths through space. They were lifelines for our economy, conduits of trade and cooperation among the diverse races of the galaxy. We would defend them not only for ourselves, but for all who depended on this interstellar commerce. I leaned closer to the screen, the bright dots representing our ships twinkling against the backdrop of inky blackness. "Initiate scans for any anomalies. We need to be aware of anything out of the ordinary." Rail nodded, his fingers moving swiftly over the controls. "Initiating deep scans now. We'll detect anything that crosses our path." As the scans began, the rest of the fleet moved into formation, and a sense of unity settled over us. Each ship was a bastion of strength, a testament to humanity's resolve. The Raven's wing glided alongside us, its hull gleaming in the starlight, and I felt a flicker of reassurance. "Captain Elan," I called over the comms, "are you ready to initiate the outer patrols?" "Ready on our end," Elan responded. "We'll maintain a tight watch on the perimeter. If the shadows show up, we'll be the first to know." A shared silence enveloped us, the gravity of our situation hanging in the air. The vastness of space felt both oppressive and exhilarating. We were on the brink of an encounter that could change everything. Hours passed as we monitored the routes. Tension grew, punctuated only by occasional updates from the other ships. It was a waiting game, one we were all too familiar with, and every passing minute heightened our awareness. "Captain," Rail said, interrupting the stillness, "I'm detecting an anomaly about 3 sectors away. It's moving fast." "Can we get a visual?" I asked, my heart pounding. "Working on it." Rail's fingers danced over the controls. The main screen flickered, and the image resolved into a shape, a dark silhouette against the star field, darting through space. It had no distinct features, just a shroud of shadow. "Shadows," I breathed, dread pooling in my stomach. "All ships, prepare for engagement." The fleet sprang into action, our ships aligning as one against the encroaching threat. The shadow vessel darted forward, gliding between the stars with terrifying agility. "Rerouting power to weapons," Rail announced, his voice firm as he focused on the controls. "Shields are at maximum." "Hold steady," I commanded, trying to keep my voice steady despite the adrenaline surging through me. "We need to lure it into our firing range." The shadow vessel drew closer, and I could see its tendrils unfurling, writhing like serpents eager to strike. "Now," I shouted, and we unleashed a barrage of energy blasts. The beams sliced through the darkness, light the void as they raced toward the vessel. But the shadows were quick, twisting and bending as they evaded our fire. The darkness coiled around the incoming projectiles, absorbing the energy before dissipating into the void. "Captain, it's adapting," Rail exclaimed, his voice tinged with urgency. "It's learning from our attacks." "Then we need to change tactics," I replied, my mind racing. "Can we create a distraction? Something to draw its attention away?" "Perhaps we could deploy decoys," Rail suggested. "If we can mimic our energy signatures, it might lead the shadows away from us." "Do it," I commanded, adrenaline sharpening my focus. "Set the decoys to activate and draw the shadows toward them." Rail quickly initiated the sequence, and a series of small drones released from the starfire, shimmering in the darkness as they mimicked our energy output. "Decoys are active," he shouted. "Let's hope this works." The shadow vessel hesitated, drawn to the pulsing energy of our decoys. "Now," I shouted, rallying my crew. "Engage." We opened fire again, this time targeting the shadows themselves. The energy blasts hit their mark, the shadows writhing and buckling under the impact. The flickering forms light the void, revealing glimpses of their true shapes, forms twisting and stretching, as if trying to escape our wrath. "Direct hits, it's destabilizing," Rail shouted, excitement lacing his voice. "Keep firing, we can't let up," I yelled, pushing the ship to its limits. As we pressed our attack, I felt a surge of hope within me. We were fighting back against the darkness, reclaiming our space. The shadows writhed and twisted, but our relentless fire kept them off balance. The main screen flickered, and I saw a flurry of movement around us. The other ships in our fleet were engaging their own targets, focusing fire on the shadows that threatened our trade routes. "Communications are holding steady," Rail reported. "The other ships are coordinating their attacks." We were becoming a force to be reckoned with, our unified strength pushing back against the shadows that sought to consume us. But then, out of the chaos, I spotted something, a second shadow vessel emerging from the void, flanking our position. My heart sank. "Rail, we have another vessel coming in from our right," I shouted, fear creeping into my voice. We're being surrounded. Damn it, he cursed, fingers racing over the controls as he tried to redirect power. We can't hold them off forever. Reroute all power to the rear shields, I commanded, bracing for impact. Prepare for evasive maneuvers. The ship shuddered as we repositioned, but it wouldn't be enough. The shadows closed in, tendrils stretching out like dark claws. Brace for impact, I yelled, my heart pounding in my chest as the first hit struck us, sending jolts of energy through the hull. Alarms blared as the ship rocked violently. We're losing shields, Rail shouted, panic rising in his voice. Hold on, we're not done yet, I roared, fighting to keep control as we careened through the void. The shadows were relentless, and as we fought to stay afloat, I felt the crushing weight of despair threatening to pull me under. But we had come too far to give up now. Reinforce the aft shields, I commanded, focusing on the task at hand. We need to withstand their assault. Rail's fingers moved in a blur as he redirected power, determination etched into his features. We've got this, Captain, he shouted, rallying the crew. We'll make it through. The darkness swirled around us, but I felt the fire of determination rising within. Together, I shouted, fueling the energy of our crew. We're humanity, and we won't back down. With renewed strength, we pushed forward, ready to confront the shadows and reclaim our place in the stars. Whatever awaited us in the void, we would face it together, united against the darkness. The battle raged on around us, the void light by flashes of energy and the dark tendrils of the shadow vessels. Each strike against our ship sent jolts through my body, but amidst the chaos, a new sense of clarity emerged. We weren't just fighting for survival, we were fighting for something greater, the very essence of humanity. Captain, they're weakening, Rail shouted, excitement breaking through his tension. Our hits are landing solidly, and their formations are breaking apart. Keep pushing, we can't let up now, I commanded, adrenaline coursing through me. The other ships in our fleet were also holding their ground, their firepower converging on the shadows. With the added strength of our allies, we began to gain the upper hand. A sudden explosion rippled through one of the shadow vessels, its form collapsing under the force of our concentrated fire. Direct hit, Rail cheered, the exhilaration palpable. They're faltering. Now's our chance. Focus all fire on the lead vessel, I ordered, my heart pounding with renewed hope. Let's end this. The energy beams shot forward, striking the heart of the lead shadow vessel. The darkness erupted in a chaotic display of energy and debris, tendrils snapping and twisting before dissolving into nothingness. Yes, that's it, Rail shouted, his fists pumping in triumph. But as we celebrated the victory, I felt an unsettling shift in the air. Rail, stay sharp, don't let your guard down. Just as I spoke, the remaining shadow vessel surged forward, drawing energy from the void itself. It swelled in size, the dark form morphing into something even more menacing. The shadows twisted and coiled, forming a massive entity, a living embodiment of darkness. Captain, it's changing, Rail gasped, eyes wide. It's becoming something else. Stay focused, I barked, fear creeping in as the shadows consolidated their strength. We've taken down one. We can do this again. We prepared our weapons, but as the shadows lashed out, we barely managed to evade their initial strike. The void around us warped, and the once clear stars were obscured by the encroaching darkness. Now, Captain, fire, Rail shouted, urgency lacing his tone. With gritted teeth, I shouted the order, and we unleashed another barrage of energy. The beams shot forth, striking the writhing mass. But it was like attacking a storm. The darkness absorbed our energy, feeding on it, growing more powerful with each strike. Captain, it's too strong, Rail cried, desperation creeping into his voice. We can't hold on much longer. I felt the weight of our situation crashing down. Each ship in the fleet was struggling against their own shadows, but I could not accept defeat. Not now, when we were so close. Rail, what if we create a feedback loop? Draw its energy and redirect it against itself, I proposed. grasping for anything that could shift the tide. His eyes lit up with realization. It could work, if we channel our energy through the ship's core. Let's do it. We'll overload the system and redirect the excess energy back to it, I exclaimed, a spark of hope igniting within me. Initiating the feedback loop, Rail shouted, fingers flying over the controls. Prepare for a surge. I could feel the ship vibrating beneath my feet as we redirected energy into the core. The surrounding darkness seemed to pulse in response, drawn toward our power as if sensing its prey. Now, release the energy, I commanded, my heart racing. With a roar, we unleashed the pent-up energy from the core. It surged outward in a brilliant wave of light, crashing against the dark mass with a force that shook the very stars. The shadows screamed a soundless wail that echoed in the void as our energy ripped through their form, destabilizing their very existence. We pressed forward, pushing our advantage. The combined might of our fleet rallied behind the charge, firing everything we had left. The darkness buckled, contorted, and then erupted. An explosion of light and energy filled the void, bathing us in a brilliant light that momentarily banished the shadows. As the brilliance faded, I stood awestruck, breathless. The shadows had been vanquished, their forms dissipating into nothingness. Did we do it? Rail asked, disbelief coloring his voice. I turned to him, a grin breaking across my face. We did. We faced the darkness and prevailed. Cheers erupted from the crew as relief flooded through us. We had reclaimed our place in the stars, standing united against the unknown. Captain, incoming message from the fleet, Rail said, his expression shifting to one of seriousness. Put it through, I replied, catching my breath. Elon's voice crackled over the comms, filled with excitement. We did it! We drove them off! All ships are reporting readiness. The trade routes are clear. A wave of euphoria swept through me. Let's regroup and assess the situation. We need to ensure the routes are safe for transit. We can't allow this to happen again. As we coordinated with the fleet, I felt a profound sense of connection to my crew and the larger human community. We were not just individuals fighting a battle, we were a collective, showcasing humanity's indomitable spirit. Days passed as we worked to restore order in the trade routes, reinforcing defenses and ensuring the safety of all who depended on these lifelines. We shared stories of bravery and resilience, bonding through our shared experience. It was during one of those quiet moments, sitting at the helm of the Starfire, that I realized how far we had come. We had faced the shadows and emerged stronger, united against the challenges that lay ahead. Captain, Rail called, breaking my reverie. New trading vessels are arriving from the outer systems. They're reporting renewed interest in the Earth routes. I smiled, watching the ships draw near. Let's welcome them back. It's time to show the galaxy that humanity is here to stay. We are not just survivors, we are thriving. As the first ships docked and traders stepped aboard, a sense of camaraderie enveloped us. Humanity was not alone in this universe. We had allies, friends, and an enduring legacy of resilience. Together, we would chart a new course, forging connections across the stars. The shadows might lurk in the depths of space, but we had proven that we were not to be trifled with. As the sun set on the horizon of Earth, I felt a swell of hope rising within me. The stars had opened before us, and we would explore them, together, as one united force. The journey ahead would be challenging, but we would face it as humanity always had, with courage, creativity, and an unwavering determination to thrive. Whatever awaited us in the vast cosmos, we were ready to embrace it. And so, standing on the precipice of something monumental, I knew we were not just humans in space. We were humanity, and we would continue to reach for the stars.